It was another long day at Tech Vibe. Jordan Carter sat at his desk, head buried in a pile of reports, a cup of half-empty coffee cooling beside him. The fluorescent lights above buzzed, and the hum of office chatter filled the air. But it felt like silence to Jordan, who could barely hear it over the sound of his own thoughts. Jordan had been working at Tech Vibe for over 2 years now, and while it was a good job, it wasn't exactly the dream he'd envisioned as a child. He had always dreamed of making an impact, of being seen for who he was, someone with potential, someone who deserved respect. But that wasn't always easy in the corporate world, at least not for someone like him. Richard Langston, the boss, was a man who commanded attention the moment he walked into a room. Jordan had learned that over time, as Langston's presence often took up more space than it had a right to. He was loud, proud, and not afraid to step on people to climb higher. It was the way he acted, the way he held himself that sometimes felt off. At least to Jordan. Richard had never directly crossed a line, but his actions were loud enough to make the atmosphere feel thick, suffocating even. He often dismissed Jordan's ideas without even a second thought. Sometimes he'd make dismissive comments about Jordan's hair, his clothes, or the way he spoke in meetings. Little things, but it hurt all the same. Jordan kept his head down, focused on his work. But it wasn't always easy. "Jordan, I need those reports by 3 p.m., Richard had called out to him earlier that morning, a tone that wasn't exactly friendly. Jordan had nodded, doing his best to ignore the subtle contempt he felt in Richard's voice. He didn't let it bother him. He was used to it by now. But today, something was different. Today, Richard seemed more irritated than usual, and his words cut deeper than the others. "Are you sure you're the right fit for this project?" Richard had asked, standing over Jordan's desk with his arms crossed. "I mean, this requires a certain finesse. Maybe someone like you isn't exactly suited for it." The way he said, "someone like you," made Jordan's stomach turn, but he kept his cool. He had learned a long time ago not to show weakness. "Yeah, I'll get it done, Richard," Jordan had replied, forcing a smile. "You'll have the report on your desk before 3 p.m. Richard hadn't even acknowledged him, just turned around and walked off, shaking his head as though Jordan's response was something to be dismissed. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened, but today it felt like more. Jordan sat there for a few moments, staring at the screen, taking deep breaths to calm himself. He couldn't let Richard's attitude get to him. Not today. Not ever. Liz, his colleague, noticed. She always did. She walked over to his desk with a concerned look on her face. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, sitting down on the edge of his desk. Jordan didn't answer right away. Instead, he took another deep breath and looked at her. "Yeah, just the usual. Richard's in a mood today." Liz raised an eyebrow. "You sure? You know you don't have to take that from him, right?" Jordan smiled weakly. Liz was one of the few people at Tech Vibe who had his back. She could tell when something was off, and she was always ready to offer a listening ear, even though she had her own struggles to deal with at work. "I know, Liz, I know," he replied. It's exhausting, you know? I just want to do my job and not deal with this." Liz gave him a supportive look. "You're doing more than your job. You're doing great work, and he's too blind to see it. Don't let him get to you. You've got this." Jordan appreciated her words, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his time at Tech Vibe was running out. He didn't want to let Richard's attitude affect him, but it was harder every day. How much longer could he stay in a place where his worth was constantly questioned? Later that day, Jordan received an email with the subject line, "Investor Meeting, Urgent Action Needed." The email was short, but the instructions were clear. Jordan was to attend a meeting at the company headquarters that afternoon. It seemed strange as he wasn't part of the investor team, but he didn't question it. It was another task, another part of the job. When he arrived at the meeting room, he was surprised to find a group of senior executives already seated around a large table. Richard was there too. But something was different about his attitude today. He looked nervous. Jordan took a seat at the far end of the table, trying to make himself as small as possible. Liz was sitting beside him, her eyes curious, but she didn't say anything. The meeting started without much fanfare. A man in a sharp suit stood up and introduced himself as the lead investor in a major deal with TechVibe. Jordan listened carefully, but as the discussion progressed, his mind started to wander. He had no idea why he was even here. But then, the man turned his attention toward Jordan. "Mr. Carter," the investor said, his voice loud and clear. "We'd like to thank you for your recent investment in our company. Your backing is what's going to help push TechVibe to the next level." Jordan froze. "What? Investment?" He looked around the room, but no one seemed as surprised as he was. Richard's face was a mix of confusion and disbelief, but the others were all nodding in approval. I didn't make any investments," Jordan said, speaking up. His voice was shaky, but he had to know what was going on. The investor smiled. "Well, apparently you did. We received a sizable check in your name a few days ago. The paperwork's all been processed. I believe you are now one of our largest investors." Jordan's heart was pounding in his chest. Was this some sort of mistake? He looked over at Richard, who was now staring at him with wide eyes. Richard stood up abruptly. "There must be some mistake," he said, voice trembling. "Mr. Carter is not an investor." But the investor wasn't having it. "The papers are all in order, Richard. It's official. Jordan Carter is a key player in this deal now." Jordan looked at Richard, his hands shaking as the realization hit him. Richard, the man who had belittled him for months, the man who had treated him like he was less than, was now standing in front of him with a look of humiliation on his face. Richard turned to Jordan, his voice now quieter, but still with a touch of disbelief. "I didn't know. I had no idea you." Jordan met his gaze. There was a moment of silence in the room as everyone waited for Jordan's response. And Jordan, though angry, took a deep breath. "I didn't know either," Jordan said quietly, "but now I do." The room was quiet. Richard looked like he had just lost the one thing he cared about, and Jordan, though shocked, felt a wave of power wash over him. He wasn't just some employee anymore. He was a part of the change that was coming to TechVibe. As the meeting ended, Richard left without saying another word. Jordan, still processing everything, turned to Liz, who was giving him a proud smile. "You did it," Liz said softly. "You showed them." Jordan nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess I did." And for the first time in a long while, Jordan felt like he truly belonged, not because of the money, not because of the investment, but because he had earned his place. He had fought for it, and now it was his time to rise. And that's the story, guys. I hope you enjoyed this journey as much as I did in creating it. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new adventure. And if you really loved it, share this story with your friends and family. Let's spread the word together. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep exploring. Hope to see you soon. Bye.